Hello, all, and welcome to the Fantasy and Sci-Fi Fanatics podcast. I'm your host, Daniel Coolbaugh. Today, I have with me a very special guest, Lillian Horn. Lillian, how are you doing today?
Doing very good. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, thank you so much for being so flexible. I really appreciate it. My audience knows it drives me nuts. It's like when you got a fish on the line. I like to do the interviews. The other stuff, I'm like, oh goodness. So thank you so much for being flexible. I was saying to Tina, I was like, I'm so glad that we could get you on today and get you into the lineup. So thank you again for being so flexible.
Yeah, no problem at all.
We'll start.
It happens. Things happen.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, my audience knows it's been crazy. But I really am trying to keep season 2 going because which has been nice. I've had a lot of people, message me and hey, I really like this episode, this and that. And numbers haven't been stellar because of the summer, but at the same time, it's kind of nice because I've gotten so many nice compliments. I'm like, well, people are clearly liking it. So I'm like, I'd like to at least finish season 2 before we have the baby. But yeah, thank you so much for coming on today. And we'll start right there.
It's a great opportunity, so why not?
Yeah. Well, I always like it when I can get somebody really at any point in their career, because for me it's kind of cool to see where Jeffrey Haskell is one where I first saw an interview with him about 8 years ago, and then I had him on, so it was cool to ask him questions that have progressed since 8 years ago. And to me, author careers is really interesting. I met people 8 years ago who are in both, traditionally published and indie, and to see them now, it's so cool, to see where people have gotten to and the books they've written. It's kind of like a celebrity.
Yeah. Everyone's journey is different too. So
yeah, it's interesting.
There's so much to explore.
Yeah, no, I think that's a good way to say it, is explore. Yeah, so it's super cool. So we'll start, speaking of journeys, we'll start with that first one for you. What has your writing journey been like up until this point?
It's been at least 20 years in the making.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, no, I started writing at a really, really young age with the most ridiculous stories you can think of. And of course, I always made it into the school papers somehow, which my teachers weren't very happy about.
Yeah.
So they just transported me into this amazing realm of possibilities, and I kind of never left.
Yeah.
So when I got my first PC and internet access, I wrote a ton of fan fiction.
Oh, that's awesome.
None of it were particularly good, mind you. But it was like like when you're early teenager and spotty internet at best, and you just go with whatever you can find have access to. So I did that for a number of years, got some pretty good feedback, which was surprising. And it was great stepping stone to just develop my style and see what did I have to improve upon. So as a Norwegian writing English, I didn't have much guidance or the right people around me to help me with the language barrier. And my English teachers, although they were great, they could only take me so far. So I studied, I took all the extra courses I had around me, available to me, and just really got into learning English, because Norwegians in general aren't very good at English, especially on the accent. You can hear it on the accent on almost every
I'll be honest, I could barely notice, because here in the United States, it just sounds like you're just from a different part of the United States, maybe Pacific Northwest, or maybe depending on where in California. So yeah, I didn't know that about you, so that's really interesting.
And my secret is that I worked on it a lot. I really wanted to just shed the worst of the accent, at least. It still bleeds through now and then. Yeah. So yeah, I think I was 18 when I first started writing seriously. And the story I wrote was a portal fantasy.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah. I thought it was pretty cool.
I love portal fantasy.
Yeah, just transported, just isekai into another world. That's just the most awesome thing I thought of at the time. So I did that, and I spent 6 years trying to complete that one story between the bachelor's degree, jobs, chronic health issues, and the feedback I got from friends, family, and other people that I just chatted with. They were really positive to this concept and to my writing style. So it really hammered home that maybe I should try to publish this.
Yeah.
I mean, what's the harm, really?
Yeah.
So I hired an editor, and the feedback I got there was so helpful. Like I got really, really excited about my publishing possibilities. So I researched publishing in Norway, and I learned very quickly that English books, especially fantasy, written by a Norwegian author, wasn't interested. Like no one was interested in that here. Like absolutely no one.
Interesting.
Yeah, this was like mid 2015, around 2015, I think. So
the market, a
the
European market was kind of interesting with fantasy. I've heard a couple people say that, like, it's interesting that a lot of Germans, like people that I know in Germany, were buying books from over here from fantasy. But, I had a couple of people I actually interviewed a while back who, were from Germany and trying to do the same thing. And it was really hard because, it's interesting. That was like an interesting 2014, 15. It just is weird how audiences were at that time. It's interesting.
Yeah, there was like nothing.
Yeah.
Like we have these tiny bookcases with English, and just a small percentage of that is in English in all the most popular bookstores that we have. And it is very disheartening, like if you want to publish a book in English here.
Yeah.
Because I didn't want to translate it. It just, Norwegian doesn't sound as good in certain aspects, especially for fantasy. Like I don't even read Norwegian fantasy, what little there is. Yeah. It's just not interesting to me. Sorry.
It's interesting, yeah.
But yeah, so this was around the same time where Twist Rose Key got a new release, and Twist Rose Key is by a Norwegian author who.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah, no, she got advice to try publishing, I think in the States or Canada or something like that, and her book just took off.
Yeah, I remember that. Yeah.
So suddenly I was seeing it everywhere, in Norwegian, in English, and in German, I think too, like in airports, and it was suddenly everywhere. And I was like, wow, maybe I should try publishing overseas. Why not?
Interesting.
So yeah, I went on Twitter.
The water cooler, as I call it.
The water cooler, exactly. God, I followed so many literary agents and just tried to get into the whole query process and like all the different formats that they were asking.
Crazy,
about.
Yeah.
Like I must have written 50 different query letters just because there is just no one answer.
Yeah.
And the query process, it was just brutal. I wanted to tear my hair off.
That's how it is here in the United States to apply to school as a teacher. Like you would think that we would just have one uniform process. Like in my state of New York, we do. My home state of Michigan, like everybody has the same website, but there'll be like 6 different versions, and they all ask you different questions. So they all have basics, but then 25% of it, which takes you the longest, and the extra questions, it's like. I was like, I'm just not going to teach. I was like, I'm just going to do something else. It was so hard so I can only imagine, with currying, where it's the same thing. It's like, can't just set one thing aside and do that. And then, mass market it to, different agents. But it's frustrating.
Giving up is easy. That's the easy part.
Yeah. That's true. Yeah. I'm kind of like, I told my buddy, he's like, well, because I'm just going to do indie. And I have a couple of things though that I do want to try and fit for Athon or Aconite. And I do know some authors from there that were interested in what I had to say about a couple book series, a couple trilogies. So I think like specific ones, I'm going to try that. And then my other ones, I'm just going to indie. But my buddy was teasing the other day. He's like, well, until you get at least one rejection letter, you can't call yourself an indie author. So I was like, that's fair. So I'll probably do it just to just to get it. I think for me, like those, I actually think it might be good for me though, because that kind of stuff fuels me. Like I'm the type of person, well, I'll put them on a wall. And then this is what I did for teaching and coaching, like every rejection letter, I put it on the wall. And then when I felt like giving up, I just looked at the wall and I was like, oh, these people said I wasn't good enough.
When you're motivated out of spite.
Oh yeah, it really like,
it just gets your fire going.
It's so true. And now, every time I teach or coach, I think back to that and I'm like, like here I am. So I feel like maybe that would be like, my venom serum or something like that. Like really, or whatever Bane uses. Like I feel like that'd be really helpful. But that's interesting. You just open up like a whole new little caveat that like I've talked about different translations, but not publishing within your own country certain things. That's really
it's easy if you already write in English and live in the United States or Canada.
Yeah. Well, it's like Germany. I just can't believe how many people, do, like particularly with fantasy, like do so well there. Like that's one of the languages right off the bat that like I might pay for a translation for, like right off the bat. And I have a couple of different books where I'm like, I do think looking at the market there, not that I'm writing to market here, but I think it would be almost like writing to market there if I got it translated, into German. But yeah, it's interesting in terms of marketing. So
yeah, it's so different from country to country too. Like
yeah,
that's the reason I'm not publishing in Norway. No one wanted me, which is weird because you would think that as authors that we have, we should expand on the fantasy market because fantasy is huge, even though we don't have a lot of books about it. It's like the publishing houses that we have here. I think we have like 2, maybe 3 major ones, not a lot.
Yeah.
And they like gatekeep everything.
It's so interesting.
And the waiting times we don't speak about those.
Yeah. It's so weird because like to me, because you would just think, I guess for me, I just think like there's so much great mythology, there's so much great history. I just feel like it's a perfect, exactly. I just feel like it's like I feel like you guys are in a perfect setting to,
we have tons of
it's crazy.
Tons.
Yeah.
Nothing. It's just the same stories over and over again that we grew up with.
So interesting. Well, it's like, I interviewed H.M. Long, Hall of Smoke, and I forget what her other one was. I just bought it the other day, and I'm almost done with the first book. And she's got this great cleric, and she's building off of almost like it's like a mixture between like Nordic, Norwegian, and like just the whole kind of that area. Like Scandinavia. Like she's got a lot of different, different things that she's put into like her own. And I was like, as a history teacher, I'm like, oh, it's cool to see different legends and myth. And then there are different peoples where it's like, there's like kind of like African people, and there's different things she took from, different places. And it's just such a beautiful tapestry of mythology. And that's very interesting. That'd be like if nobody wanted to do like Native American mythology here. Like it's always so cool. Like Patricia Briggs does such a good job. Just I guess she's English, but that's very interesting to me that people wouldn't latch onto that, particularly within a fantasy setting.
Like, stories need voices. And it really shouldn't be that hard.
It's interesting.
Just a side note, it was actually really interesting when I was researching for my book. Yes, I actually did a little research. And the folklores that I explored, they were so different from Sweden and Denmark and even a bit of Iceland, I think. So they were just really different, and it was interesting because it's not that far to the border. But the stories are so diverse.
Yeah.
Even though they're sort of the same, like the premise is the same, but they have variations to them, and that's very interesting to look into, like why that happened, that kind of stuff.
No, it really is like, I think that has a lot to do with like, your like geography. Like here when we have like Inca, Aztecs, Olmecs, I think some people think like they're all the same. They're all relatively within the same country. And Mayans, I'm like, no, they're like totally different. Like I was like, there's some things that they culturally diffuse that are the same, but for the most part, they're like completely different cultures. And so I could we were just talking about that in my social studies class actually Friday, because some kids were like, how on earth are these people so close? They're using cultural diffusion and talking about all these things, but then they're so different. I'm like, it's just has to do with geography and how people traveled. And to me, that's fascinating because you can really, I think, take that into, like what you just said, that would be really cool in a fantasy setting, and obviously that always creates conflict. So I think it's just like, you come up with your different groups and maybe they're somewhat similar, but then, or maybe even close, right? And then change them from there. Look at Greek, city states with Athens and Sparta, I think it's fascinating to put the historical context into, a mythology, into a fantasy setting. That's why I think fantasy is definitely my favorite, but you can just do more. It's way more fun that way. Well, now I have to be looking into the Norwegian fantasy market and see what's going on there.
I think we had one major fantasy breakthrough from a Norwegian author the last 10 years that I could see, like at a glance in a bookstore.
Yeah.
One in the last 10 years.
Crazy.
No, wait, with the twist rose key, that's two.
Yeah. Oh, that's so
but you see how sparse it is. So that really just made me lose a lot of confidence.
Totally.
I was like, no one wants my book here, so
yeah.
And then when I started querying across the pond and the dam and all that kind of stuff, it's just people don't really want my stories. Like, it's a great premise, but the style just isn't there for them. So it's like, well, is it a geographical issue? Is it because English is my second language and I'm screwing up somewhere? Or like all those kind of things. So yeah.
Why am I? My camera keeps doing this now. Yeah, it's got to be something every day. I don't know. That's really interesting. I'll be interested to see if you discuss. Well, I do think just saying, like, my friend Mark Timoney, he's Australian, and I just think, like, we were talking one day and he's like, well, I just think I haven't found my audience yet. And I started reading his first book, Blood of the Spear, and I'm like, yeah, no, I'm like, this is great stuff. I'm like, you clearly haven't found your audience yet. Cause I'm like, Robert Jordan fans should be eating your story up. And, he's still building an audience. And I read someone else's the other day. They're like, hey, can you just read chapter 1? And I'm like, I don't know why anybody wants my opinion. But I was like, sure, like, why not? So I did that. And then, I told him, I was like, I think you have the same problem, and that's already what I'm thinking about for my urban fantasy. I'm like, I think that's going to be the biggest thing. Like, I want veterans and I want people that like, military or police, dramas and things. It's like in a fantasy setting and urban fantasy setting. And my guy's an ex-Marine and stuff. So I'm like really trying to figure out how to target that audience. But I think that's, like you're saying, like that's so difficult to do because fantasy, right, is just such a large genre. It's like maybe sometimes you're in the wrong subgenre. Yeah, like or maybe you just haven't found an audience yet. Book 2s are, big. Like, I've seen a lot of people do a book 1, do a prequel novella, and then do book 2, and all of a sudden, bam, they just shoot off. And to me, that's like really interesting. Yeah. It gets interesting when you really look at it. But I'm horrible because I just buy everything. I'm like, oh, that looks cool. And then I'm writing so much and so busy that it really doesn't matter because I'm never going to get to it. But I
mean, my bookshelves are atrocious. Like, my TBR is just stacking up.
Yeah, I always say mine's like a mountain. So it's not a TBR pile, it's a mountain. But yeah,
a TBR mountain.
Yeah.
to be climbed.
Yeah, exactly. That actually leads us perfectly into the next one. So what genres do you currently write in, and how did you choose?
Well, I stick strictly to fantasy. Just there's just nothing else that really interests me all that much. Like, I've tried to read more diverse, like, the last couple of years, but it just doesn't tickle that reader for me.
That's fair.
I mean, fantasy is just a medium that as we said, it's just so diverse, and you can do anything about it. I mean, who doesn't love breaking every single rule of physics and just slap a magic sticker on it and call it canon?
Yeah. Like, this person can do this thing,
Exactly.
Like,
anything is possible. You can have dragons and flying machines in one scene, and no one will question it.
Pendragon series,
Gotta write that down.
Yeah. Well, like that, I saw a guy here who's one of the only fantasy writers I've seen out and about in public where I live. It's like I'm like saying to my wife all the time, I'm like, everybody around me, like my best friend's probably tired of me hearing, about this and that. I have one of my friends that a good friend, like we just both love urban fantasy and reading. So he's really excited to read my stuff. He's about the only person I can talk to about it because everybody else is like, la da la da la. But I was walking at a festival recently and I saw this guy's shirt and he was like, fantasy authors have more fun.
They do.
And I was like, it's so true. Sorry, sci-fi. But or unless you're in fantasy sci-fi, like I was talking to
science fantasy.
Yeah.
That's an interesting genre.
Yeah, like that. I think that Star Wars interests me far more than military sci-fi or something like that. Not that I haven't really enjoyed some, like oh my god, what's his name? Last name's Cooper. I'm totally blanking on his name. I'm trying to get him on at some point. It's called, his first book was called Hard Duty. It was one of the coolest sci-fi books I ever read, and it was just so awesome. It's military sci-fi, and it had to be one of the best ones. I got it like free with something for Google Play, and I ate it up. But yeah, I definitely, fantasy is my jam. I like to read it because I like to write it, and I find that I'm just better at it.
I feel the same. It's just I did write a lot of other different types of stories that were like inspired by one of the big Norwegian authors that name escapes me because it's been so many years, but he had this really humoristic style and really, really sarcastic, which perfectly encapsulated their Norwegian spirit in
No, that's cool.
So my style is definitely a bit inspired by that too.
Oh, that's cool. Well, that's super cool. Oh, I was going to ask you for the first question, what kind of fan fiction did you write?
Do I have to answer that?
No, you don't have to. No,
I'm just kidding. Trying to write. I think I wrote a little Harry Potter.
Oh, cool.
Naruto and Bleach. A lot of manga.
Oh, I love Bleach. Bleach got me through a hard time in college. And I was like that was like where I was really starting to do like a lot of martial arts. And I was talking different, it was just like the perfect timing for me. And yeah, a lot of those stories were just so cool. And I really liked their writing style. So
yeah, the fight sequences were just so cool, and like the universe, the set, everything was just mwah.
Yeah, well, everybody always talks about like Metal Alchemist, stuff like that, and I'm like, yeah, it's Attack on Titan. I'm like, it's great, but for me, Bleach, it was like perfect. It was like, yeah, it was definitely a epitome. I was like, why didn't I think of this and write this? But
why isn't this my original idea?
Yeah, exactly. Still kicking myself. All right, so my favorite one here, always asking authors about their works. So what is your book, Perils of Sea and Sky, about, and how did you come up with this idea?
I'll answer the easy one first. I came up with this idea from a dream.
Oh, that's cool.
So a lot of the stuff that I've written, it has just come from snippets of a dream, like a vibe or an image.
Yeah.
So yeah, just everything. I've dreamt up everything, and but just a small sequence, and then I write an entire book out of that. So I actually saw a gray foggy sky and just this red flying galleon shooting through it, and a red-haired lady at the helm, and that's about it.
Oh, that's interesting.
And then I wanted to incorporate a little more folklore into the story, because there isn't much folklore, Scandinavian folklore in fantasy in general. As I was doing a lot of research, it was all the mythology, like Thor, Odin, and Valhalla, yada yada. It's like, yeah, we know, Loki was a trickster and all that. We know, but what about the 1,000-year history in between? So yeah, the book. It is an adult fantasy novel set in an Earth-like world in the early 1700s.
Oh, that's cool.
Such an interesting time period too.
Yeah, I love it. Yeah,
clean canvas to work with in terms of technology.
Yeah.
So the seas are plagued by a foggy hellscape called the Grey Veil. but that hasn't stopped like the technological advantage to take sail ships from the sea to the skies. And I'm not talking zeppelins or anything like that, but actual flying sail ships like Treasure Planet.
Oh, cool. That's such a great story that's not pulled from enough, I think. Like,
it's so underrated. Like,
I
don't understand why that flopped. Like,
I think it was way ahead of its time in terms of writing, and like another one was like the Atlantis one that they did. Like,
yeah, it's actually both of those are my favorite movies. That and The Road to El Dorado.
That's another one too that nobody ever talks about. I'm like, how are those not in the vault? Right? Like Disney.
They're the best to cut, and they're the best things to come out in that time period.
In terms of writing stories, like I love Aladdin because it's fun, it's whatever, it's nostalgic. But as a writer, I'm like, those three had the best adventures, and I'll fight anybody on it. Like that, those and Mulan were just like I thought were like the best stories in terms of a writer. Had the best arcs, had the best characters. Yeah, way ahead of the Treasure Planet 2, like way ahead of its time. I mean, it's a shame, like I think they should actually redo the animation, and that's one I would actually remake if I were Disney, because I think a lot of people would really pull to it. That's cool.
Yeah. So the main character is Captain Rosanne Drakenheart of the trade ship Red Queen. And she has a side business smuggling goods through the so-called safe spots of the Grey Veil. But she's busted by a lawyer who then blackmails her into finding his father, who disappeared in the Grey Veil. Because why not?
Yeah.
So she has 2 weeks to find the ship, and if she doesn't comply with his demands, he'll out her to the authorities, which would brand her and the crew traitors to the colonies. Yay. Oh, and he has to come along just to make things harder.
Yeah.
He's like, yeah, no, I'm gonna come with you. No, insurance.
Yeah.
So you have a mildly nervous lawyer aboard a ship full of dodgy crew, and the captain just trying to keep the crew from finding out about the blackmail to keep him alive, while they sail into the most dangerous part of the planet where few, if any, has ever returned from.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, so they're attacked by pirates. They end up stranded on a mysterious island inside the Grey Veil, and they're not alone. So with one disaster after another, without spoiling too much, everyone is spread to the Nine Hills, and they need to figure out how to fix the ship, find everyone, and get the hell off the island before it takes them all. And here's the bonus. The captain, Rosanne, has to work together with the pirate who stranded them.
Oh, man. I like that. You got a lot of good conflicts there that sound really interesting.
How to make it worse for the characters.
Yeah.
Volume 1.
It's weird because I read like a memoir or something like that from somebody that had a very similar thing happen with like a mine in like Africa. Like it was like during colonialism and stuff, and I forget which country it was. It might have been England actually. And they did send like a lawyer or somebody with investor where they, were securing the person's investment. And then they went on this like safari to, I think it was like a mine or something like that in the middle of nowhere, and had to go, write everything down on what everything was worth. So it's funny that like I read like a true story like that, and then you actually turn that into a fantasy novel. So that's like really cool.
I swear I haven't based this off anything. This is all from my own.
That's just cool. Isn't it crazy though that like, first of all, there's two things. First of all, I think that's really neat because that shows that you could take a real life circumstance and real life conflict, put it in a fantasy setting. And again, I think that's one thing that's so malleable about fantasy, that you can take a real life event, and make it fantastical and make it a really good story and still show the, some of those real world themes with it. And also goes to show you that you, like my friend and Mark Timney and I, like we actually both came up with the same terminology because we had read the same, Dirk Ashton said that too about American Gods with Neil Gaiman, where before Paternus was out, people were like, oh, have you read, American Gods? He's like, no. So then he was looking stuff up. He had to like change things. He's like, had to change how they traveled because he called it the same thing or whatever. So it's interesting how, the human brain, like, it's almost like there's only so many different combinations, but then you have to figure out what to do with them. So it ends up getting interesting there.
Yeah, that was a problem with the first book I wrote, because I thought it was original. I thought it had like all the cool comps, and it was just all the cliches. Nothing was original. And the more book deals I saw, and like the descriptions, the blurbs, and the movies series, and it was just that is similar, that is similar, that is similar. Yeah, I'm scrapping this book.
Well, it's funny that most people say, I've heard a lot of people say that recently, when that was definitely my first book, is it was literally like Star Wars in a fantasy setting. And that's pretty much, there was like some other things, but it was pretty much it. It was like Star Wars and Forgotten Realms mixed together. And then I had to like, really be like, okay, well, what am I going to do to make it more unique? And then I scrapped it. I ended up using some of the world building and changing it once I got this really great idea. It literally changed the entire thing and made it way more unique, if anything could be at that point. But yeah, it's just, it gets interesting. I just feel like a lot of people almost write fan fiction, even if they don't mean to, for their first book.
Yeah, exactly. The first book just explore everything. Like, what do you want to see on a page? And then you figure out how unique or not unique that is, and you just hope for the best. And then you can always go back and change things. It's like, if you don't get a story published, you can just go back to it and work on it how much as you like, and it'll improve every time you do.
Yep. I still have all my old stuff. I have my old flash drive and my original world building on it, where it was kind of like Forgotten Realms fan fiction with Star Wars. I have, old written documents. I don't throw away anything. I have everything I've written since like, I think age 14, for the most part, in terms of fantasy and sci-fi, a little bit of horror.
Same.
Yeah. One of my friends deleted a whole book. And so Kelly McCullough and I were discussing this on our episode when he was talking about his Fallen Blade series. And I love RL, his main character, and Triss, he's like an ex. It's like set in like a Asian fantasy setting, and he's like an ex, almost like priest / assassin, I guess is the best way to put it. And the magic system's amazing. They have these shadow creatures that are attached to them from the shadow realm, and they help to hide them, and they can both use each other's powers. And it's really cool symbiotic system. And Kelly had said that originally it was a different idea and he was going to delete it. And then he went and did his webmage series, and then they wanted something else. So he's like, oh, well, let me try to fix this. So then he fixed it, and it became the Fallen Blade. And I'm thinking to myself, I said to him, I was like, thank you so much for not deleting that. And I had a friend who did delete it, and I was like, no, I'm like, that could have been like the next Dritz, or the next, like any character that I love. I'm like Kelly's books changed my life from a writing perspective. I was like, oh, I love them. So I highly recommend them. But I always say to authors, I'm like, put it away in a drawer, put it somewhere safe, put it on OneDrive, let it sit there. It's not hurting anybody. But maybe in the future, that's like, what if that's like the next Harry Potter, or or something? It's like, like, I just feel like, I don't want to say the word gypped, but I did feel that way. I felt like, my friend, and I like the idea too, he was telling me about it. I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm like, if you fix that sounded so cool. So I think you make a good point there that, you can really go back at any point, and who knows what kind of inspiration you'll get from it.
Absolutely. And it helps you to just maintain your writing too.
Yeah.
And you can also see how much you've changed over the years. Like, I still go back to that Portal fantasy book, because it's my heart book. I spent 6 years on it, and I just poured everything I had into it, and I love it, even though it has some very crappy sections.
Oh, I know that feeling. I'm worried about going back. And I remember like 6 years ago, I looked back and I was like, like, this is awful. Now I can only imagine, after writing 2 books, like how I would feel. Like, I'm going to do it at some point the next couple of weeks, just as like a, to show people like there's there's some sort of progression that's going on here. But it gets scary depending on what you wrote. But yeah, it can definitely be interesting though. It's definitely something that you can learn from. So I think that's really cool. That sounds really interesting. Which leads us to the next one here. Can you tell us anything about your next book, Journey of the Lost and Damned, coming out in 2024, or is it too soon for that?
it's not too soon, but it's like I have to avoid spoilers.
Yeah, because that's book 2, right?
Yes, because it builds upon the events and the characters from book 1, so I can't really say too much.
That's fine. That's
spoil book
I
1.
must say that's a good little. I was just curious. Yeah, I was like, oh, it looks like book 2. So yeah, I was just curious if you. I was curious if you were going for a trilogy, if you were doing 4 or 5, if you had a number in mind yet, or.
I actually, when I wrote book 1, that was all I had. I didn't have any potential book 2 or nothing past the events of book 1, which was actually suited me just fine, because then I can focus on this one thing. But I did want to explore the things that I didn't get to explore in book 1. And when you're writing a debut novel, you really have to limit yourself, because there's just so much I wanted to write, and I just didn't have enough pages for it, because I'm not Tasha Suri and can write like yay thick books and get away with it. Like I'm a nobody. I don't have that power over agents and all that kinds of stuff.
But so. Brandon Sanderson talks about it all the time. He's like, I can get away with a 300,000, he goes, I could probably get away with a 300,000 page book at this point and people would still buy it versus somebody new. So I think that's totally true.
Yeah, my first book was like 230,000 words, I think, and I actually tried to pitch that to an agent, and once I got this is too long. I really like the concept, I like the style, but it's too long. Then I was like, okay, I need to write a shorter one, so that's why I wrote Perils of Sea and Sky.
Yeah, I mean, I'm really interested in that one. I started actually reading chapter 1 the other night when Tina sent it to me, but your Portal Fantasy, I just know so many people that once they get like their first trilogy done, then they go back to that love project. And that usually, knocking on wood for you, that's usually the one that just like takes off, and I've known a lot of people that have done that recently. So
I'm considering it, because I do have a lot of project, but that's for later.
Yeah. But that like 4th book, you never know. Yeah, it's just funny. It's almost like that's like the secret sauce, that like it's that one Michael R. Fletcher talks about, where it's that one that's constantly in the back of your mind that you're like, how do I fix it? How do I fix it? How do I fix it? And
absolutely.
It's interesting. Well, that's super cool. I was just curious about that one. I was having trouble asking questions for that, because I was like, oh, I don't want to know too much because of book 1. So, but that's good, because I know a lot of people say like, oh, I want to know when the sequel's coming out so that I can start this book. So I just wanted the audience to know, that you got book 2, in the pipeline.
Yeah, I'm not stringing anyone along. So it's like, oh, you have to wait until book 3. Oh, no, book 4. I have seen a couple of authors do this, and it pisses me off.
Yeah.
It's like, no, I'm not stringing anyone along. I am building upon the events of book 1, because I didn't have the pages to explore everything I wanted to explore. Yeah. So hopefully, once we start with the editing process of Journey of the Lost and Damned, I get to get away with a lot of things.
Yeah. Oh, that's really cool. All right. So now, definitely one of my favorite questions, because there's not a lot of people that I can talk to about this. So you're a fellow R.A. Salvatore fan. What is your favorite book by him? Do you have It's hard. I don't even know. I don't even know if I can answer that. I did like Thousand Orcs though, like that for me, or The Silent Blade. Like those two in particular were just like, they've always stuck with me, like in terms of the narrate. I thought he always narrates well, but like those were two. The Ghost King made me cry. And then
nothing on the Ghost King. It's my next book. Nothing on the Ghost King. It's fine actually. I've heard a lot of my friends say that the Ghost King made them cry. Like
I cried that one, and the next one, Godhiram or whatever. I cried like a baby. And my mom, I was home for Christmas break. She's like, "Are you okay?" Because she thought something was wrong with my wife. I was like, "This thing happened," and my mom's like, because she bought me the books for years. And she bought me my first Forgotten Realms book as a good job at school thing. Yeah, but I was just like, I had to take a break after that.
Reward.
Yeah. Yeah, I can't wait for you to read those and then to message me about it.
God, it's been 10 years since
Yeah.
I got Ghost King. It's still in my shelf, but I actually I'm making an effort to read it this year. I've planned it since New Year's. But anyways, yeah. God, it's really hard to just choose one book because
Oh, I know.
he's written so many, and there's like 40, almost 40 books in the Legend and Gist series.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I think now I lost track now because he's released five, six, five. I think recently, within the last decade, like he's released at least like 12. Somebody probably quote me, but yeah, he's got to be well over 53 by now. Like,
Yeah, and plus all the side stories.
Yep. The cell swords and stuff like that. Yep. Yeah, I didn't even think of that. Yeah. Well, do you prefer, like when you're reading Legend of Dritz, would you prefer to read Legend of Dritz or Cleric Quintet? I think that he should have kept going with more of the. I wish that was a series and not just a 5-book. I think there could have been, like, it was a great arc, but I just I wanted more of Catterley and Danica and the Boulder brothers.
Yeah, absolutely. Like, while I enjoy that the Cleric Quintet was like, it was just a pentatology, just 5 books.
Yeah.
So first of all, it's not a fair comparison to the Legend and Drizzt. Sorry,
No,
I have
that's
to
true.
say
Yeah,
everything. Yeah, the Legend just has the Dark Elf trilogy, like the very first 3 books that really resonated with me because the time that I started reading them, or I was introduced to them by a friend, and I had just moved out of home for the first time, for the only time. And his journey from like escaping that life he didn't want, finding his place in the world, and just establishing himself, it just really resonated with me. And I still reread that trilogy now and then. But then there's also the Cleric Quintet, which is just more fun. It's a shorter arc. The timeline is much shorter. The characters are, I feel like they are more well-rounded.
Yeah.
Because it's a limited cast.
Yeah. It's a very interesting, I think, to look at the different writing styles that he used in. Because again, I feel it's hard for me, having read whoever, to pick a better narrator. I think he just does such a great job narrating, like the fight scenes, the emotion.
Fight scenes are the best. They
like
inspired my writing so much.
Yeah. Him and Elaine are 2 of the writers that I was like, I want to write. Like when I read them, I'm like, I have to write now. Like Elaine, like they're very different, right? Like Elaine Cunningham, the daughter of the Drow. I mean, it's just that trilogy, like, changed me a couple years ago, and I'm like, Elaine has changed me 3 different times as a writer within my like writing career since age 14, and I'm just like, I'll read something else of hers and I still want like another couple books, with some of her main characters. But yeah, it's interesting though to look at Bob and to see the narrative style, of those books, and then to, again, like you said, just like a fun adventure and a quicker arc. It just seems like he's got a lot of gears. So,
and the covers were amazing for the 2000 edition, like 80s style, kind of limited, but just a lot of breathing space in between. Just one action scene. It just
That's ruined me because now I need to do that for my own covers. But it's like, that's what I like. So it's like, they always say like, write what you want to write, but also like I want to sell what I would buy, and I'm not a big, like, you're not going to see me just have a sword on my cover. No offense to anybody. Like, it's not me. And I think, it's not that I won't buy your book, but for me, I just personally, like, I do still look at, like you said, like the actual, like Malazan Book of the Fallen, Glenn Cook, like I look at those classic 80s, and
I would love if my cover was in that style. Like, I would be going like, look.
I liked your cover though. I thought it looked really good. I love like the sail in particular, how I don't know,
I was so fuzzy about the sails. It's like, no, it's gotta have this pattern. Come on.
Yeah. It looks really good. Like it caught my eye immediately when Tina sent it to me. I was like, oh, that's really cool. And I tried explaining to my kids, I'm totally blanking on what the technical term is, but I taught graphic design for a while. I was originally gonna be an illustrator. So yeah, there's just certain things I'm like, oh, I like that. I liked the placement. I thought it looked really good. I liked the shape of it. The sail in particular, like it really draws your eye. And we talked about, where certain things should be, to draw your eye. And yeah, I thought that was
yeah, I was like moving stuff around all the time, and like early in the process, like,
yeah.
can we compose it like this? More room here, less there, more contrast there, whatever.
Yeah.
Don't give me free reins of my covers, please.
Well, sometimes though, I mean, sometimes you change one little shadow and it just changes the entire perception of the cover. And when you're talking, when 65% of your sales are going to be driven, particularly as an indie author, well, really anybody now, because of Amazon and things, 65% of your sales are going to be driven by your cover. It's like, it really does, if you need to tweak something or whatever, like it really does need to fit. So, I think you need to be happy with it because you're going to be peddling it until you get another cover. So
yeah, I see a lot of fantasy book covers now that they're really beautiful and cool and awesome and all that, like mantle pieces. Like I could put this on my mantle and stare at it every day.
Yeah.
But if you line them up next to each other, a lot of them just look way too busy. Way too busy. Yeah. There's too much going on. There's too many details, and it's all too sparkly. It's just it's all the same.
No, yeah. Well, that's like I have JD Evans. I'm blanking on the other two people I just talked to about this. But her covers in particular, like, are more of a simplified outer design and then have cool, like amazing black and white drawn characters and then just a little bit of color. And I'm like, that is so aesthetically pleasing. And, they look amazing. They're not action shots, but they look amazing. And, I'm like, the design was really done well. The trilogies, let's say, will all match. They'll just have a little bit different design. I've seen a lot of people doing that type of thing recently. And I'm like, I really like that.
Yeah, I've seen a few of those and they're really cool. It's like, it's very bold to go simplistic with your covers when it's fantasy. It's like, that's bold.
Yeah. I feel like if you're going to do it, like my buddy and I are constantly sending stuff back and forth to be like, oh, maybe this, and we liked the one where people for a while were doing like a white background and then a cutout of like a werewolf. And then in the cutout of the werewolf, it's like the picture of your actual cover. And then the words went around it with like a, outer box design or whatever. Like those were pretty popular for a little while and those looked cool. So we talked about doing that, and then maybe doing a different cutout in the center or something. But we're addicted to book covers. I think that's the artist in me, but
I think the young adult age group has ruined book covers because everything must look that aesthetically pleasing, and it's bled through to the other age groups as well. So like everything has to look that good.
They're always amazing. I mean, I'm thinking of like the Colossus, I think is what the book was called, where the kid's like holding up like a Neptune like sphere and there's like an ocean around him. And I'm just like, that's such a cool cover. And then the logo was amazing. I'm looking at the back, it's got that wraparound cover and I'm like, oh no, I really like that. And it was like years and years ago, I bought book one and totally blanking on the author, but yeah, I do agree. Like they definitely elevated what everybody else needed to do because, I think you were looking at those kids who were growing up and you're trying to get them into, young adult or, then moving on to adult fantasy.
Middle grade, young adults.
Yeah. It's like, you just, I think it was like a natural line in the advertisement with the covers, but and now like I tease Felix Ortiz and Sean T. King all the time. I'm like, you guys are ruining the fantasy genre. And they're like, what do you mean? I'm like, you guys are I'm like, you guys have such amazing work, like amazing covers. And I'm like, now I feel like I have to do that with my writing. Like, I don't have that much time to be that good at writing as they do at their, Sean's lettering and his logos are amazing. So I'm saving up to have him do a logo. Or Felix's, like he did one with a hunter and like two dogs. And it was just like, it was so aesthetically pleasing. And so I was teasing him. I was like, stop ruining it for the rest of us. Like now everybody's going to be expecting that these books are going to be amazing.
The
like,
writing has to reflect the covers.
Exactly. Yeah. So I'm like, they're going to buy it. And be like, Yeah, they're gonna be like, we could just bought a poster, or a painting of this. So I was teasing both of them the other day. I was like, yeah, now I have to write better. Darn it. But
yeah.
Yeah, it's really funny. I could talk about covers all day.
Absolutely.
So who is one character that you would want to go on an adventure with if you could choose any medium throughout history? So if you like Gilgamesh to Bugs Bunny.
Most of the characters that I'm interested in, usually I've gone through hell and back, and I'm not sure I want any of that. I'm very happy with my small comfortable life. In my flat. That's fine.
Like Bilbo. Maybe Bilbo Baggins then.
Yes, absolutely. A hobbit would be perfect.
That would be really cool.
Not Frodo.
Yeah, no.
but I did read Gideon the Ninth last year, and necromancy in space and a two-handed sword-wielding cavaliers sound so cool. I mean, I would like to see that. I would like to experience that.
Yeah. No, that'd be cool. Mine would always be, we're actually, my best friend and I, after we're done with Malzahn, Book of the Fallen, I think that's going to be our palate cleanser, because after 9 books of Steven Erikson, which is great, it's like hurting my brain at this point because we've fitting them in basically in 2 years with like everything else. So, but I think that's what we're going to do is Gideon the Ninth. Bought it for him. So I think we're going to do that one. I've been waiting for him to do it. Yeah. So I'm like really excited, but I always thought Conan. Yeah.
Oh.
Be cool. I always thought Conan would be fun. I don't think I'd survive with him, but I thought he would be fun. He's always one of my favorites. Robert E. Howard, like, changed my life. He's one of the other authors that I was like, every time I read something about Conan, I was like, all right, now I have to be a writer. Darn it. So I blame Robert E. Howard for all the bills I'm gonna have with editing and book covers and things. Well, that's really cool. Yeah, I hadn't considered that. It would be hard to anybody I chose, it would be hard to go on an adventure with them. I probably wouldn't make it back. So I have to think about that for the future.
I like to live. I like to survive my adventures.
Yeah. That's fair. I was thinking that the other day. I was like, I'd be like the Robert Jordan kids, with Wheel of Time, where I wouldn't want to leave my village at this point. Like, if Han Solo came up to me or Arnold was like, come with me if you want to live, I'd probably just be like, I'm just going to stay here and take my chances. All my books are here, like Bilbo. So maybe I am.
The newspaper, sit there. And say, yep, this is life.
That's fair. What is one thing, this has been a really interesting one that a fellow writer gave to me, and everybody's just had a different answer, and it's pretty cool. So what is one thing you want to see yourself do in your writing career once you look back on it? Like, what's one thing you want to have done? What's one thing you like? I thought it'd be really cool. I would love like a comic book personally, like a graphic novel. I really liked, like, I don't know if people know this, but Robert Jordan for Wheel of Time, or in the late 90s, they did like the first 6 books had like 4 graphic novels each, and they are amazing. So I was reading those, and I wish they had finished them. They might have, I might have just lost track, but those were so cool. So I would love personally to do graphic novels on like a trilogy of mine or something like that. I think that would just be really cool.
Yeah, I haven't really considered like what I would like to have achieved when it comes to my writing career, because of my chronic health issues. So it's like I don't have the energy or the time to plan much ahead, like maybe a few days, a month if I'm lucky, and then it just implodes. But just the next project, really. Audiobooks are always cool, but graphic novels, now that you mention it, that would suit so well to my story.
It'd be cool. I would buy that. I would read the book, and then I would buy the graphic novel just to compare them. I know the
perfect guy for it too. Oh, I hope I can convince him to do this. Maybe if the book takes off. That would be awesome.
I'm knocking on wood for you. That'd be really cool. Anytime that's the case, I buy the graphic novel from a book that I read. Like, I was really disappointed because Kevin Hearn's Iron Druid Chronicles, it was like right about the pandemic, and they already had like issues that, like, with the first issue, and then I think they didn't do it. So I'm praying that they can get it back off the ground, because like I really loved the Harry Dresden graphic novels. So I love reading the book and then, reading the graphic novel. I've done that for years with different ones where I was able to. Lord of the Rings was really cool to do that way. Really
There's
cool,
a lot of
actually.
people who also don't really read books, so graphic novels is
Yeah,
like
so
the
you get a
perfect
whole new
medium
market.
for those.
Yeah. It's like
Which
audiobooks,
was which one was it? The Discworld series, the first book, something about magic.
Color of Magic.
Color of Magic,
Color
yeah.
of Magic.
I
I love
actually
that
have
book.
that graphic novel in my shelf, and it's amazing.
I did not know
enjoyed it so
that they
much.
did a graphic novel, so now I got to go get that on Comixology.
It's in
Because
hardback too.
I would love to see that one. I would love to see that one, because visually I had to reread a couple of things, because that one, I love the writing, but at times I was like, I don't think I'm that zany when I visualize. So
Yeah, sometimes the descriptions just fall a little short or weird.
yeah, or my
Like the
brain just
chest with all the
doesn't.
feet. It's like, what
Yeah,
kind of
yep.
feet?
I want to see what it's like. And I think that's why I like certain things visually, like, and I think it's cool. So I like Legend of Dritz books, for instance, like it was cool for me to read, the Crystal Shard and then get to read the graphic novel.
Oh, the Crystal Shard has a graphic novel?
Yeah, they did up until like, I know I bought up until Siege of Darkness. And then I don't know how far they got after that. And then his like the Demon Slayer ones, I read the graphic novels, but I haven't gotten to the like the books yet. But I love the graphic novels. I thought they were really good, so I'm definitely going to read those at some point. But yeah, I highly recommend them. It was really cool to, to see the Crystal Shard, to see the Icing Death, the dragon.
I actually really enjoyed
really
the Crystal Shard because it was so different from the others.
It was, yeah.
Yeah,
yep.
Because canonically it's the fourth book, but it was the first one he wrote in
Yep.
that series.
Yep.
And it really showed, but it was just
Yep.
it was just a fun read. It was
Yeah,
so many weird things that happened, and all the descriptions were like, flouncing hair and
Yep.
all that kind of fun stuff.
Yeah, I bought the trilogy for my buddy a while back, and he was like, "Oh, this is really good. I can't believe I haven't read this." I'm like, "Yeah, I know." So we started getting into the other books, but that's one trilogy that I would love to go back and read. I literally bought that set, and like the Cleric Quintet, I got the first one from the library, and then I bought it because I couldn't wait, and then I got like the quintet, like the really big omnibus.
Oh yeah, that one, yeah.
Yeah, I finished all those within like one Sunday. Like I just sat there. My mom was like, "Are you okay?" I was like, "I'm reading. Don't bug me." Like trying to get through this. Yeah, it was very, very good.
When was the last time you ate?
Oh, I definitely lost those series. Like I definitely lost like pounds from not eating. Like, I would just be up there all day. My parents, like in their room, had like a nice fan. I put the radio on, and they have a great sun coming in. So I would just sit there, and I would just read for hours. The summer was the nicest time. That's why I still on Sundays I like to read on Sundays when I can. Those books, definitely makes me nostalgic. So those are the kind of books I like to write. So
now I really want to get back into Salvatore's books again, because they were just fuel for my creativity, because
I agree.
They influenced so much how I wrote.
Yeah.
I haven't read a book from Salvatore in like 7 years, maybe. I think it's time to start again.
I think for me it's right around there too, because right when my wife and I moved, right when we met, I read Grand Hero, and then there was the one after that, and then the one after that, I'm like, the first 50 pages, I hadn't read one of them in a while, and it was like I was just kind of burnt out because I was reading so many Forgotten Realms. I was just like, okay, I need to do something else. But then now there's like all these other books in between. So yeah, I definitely was thinking about going back recently. Every time I do, I get through like another 5, and then within like a week, and then I'm like, oh, I need a little bit of time. But
I'm such a slow reader. I take forever to go through books.
I am nowadays. I think I'm just like doing too much. So I'm like actually looking forward to next year with pausing the podcast, because we'll have episodes way out in advance. And I don't think I'm going to coach after this year. I think I'm just going to take a break since we're having the baby, and It'd be kind of nice. My friend was like, speech to text, Dan, speech to text. So I can, have the baby.
You start reading for the baby.
That's true too. No, that's true too. Yeah. I definitely think that, yeah, I definitely like that. I've done that a lot with my nephews and stuff. So it's always fun for me, at least even if they're just.
I mean, it is parental supervision.
It is, yeah. No, that's true. That's true. Depending on what you read, right? So do you have any updates, news, current projects, or anything like that you'd like to share with us?
Well, I am still in the middle of the editing process of Journey of the Lost and Damned, just before I'm sending it to Tina for editing. So
that's cool.
That is still on track. It's actually going very well. I just hope I get everything I want to tell in it, because I don't want to write a third book just to cover those few things.
Yeah. No, totally.
Or maybe I'll create more. Who knows?
Yes.
I have something cooking in my brain, but it's very early stages, and I don't want to say too much just in case.
Oh, I like surprises, because then next time I'll be like, yeah, remember that thing you said? Like somebody like gave me a wallop one the other day after they came back a second time. I was like, wow. Like,
oh yeah. Oh, by the way.
Yeah.
Yeah. So my September release, Perils of Sea and Sky, will be getting an audiobook format.
I was gonna ask you. That's really cool.
Yes, I got the sample last week, and I listened to it, and I just got so insanely excited listening to it. It was just, oh my god, it really feels like a book now.
Yeah. I love reading a book, particularly one that I really enjoyed, and then I wait like a month, and then I get the audiobook, and then I like it. Helps my writer brain. I don't know how else to describe it. It really makes me like, because especially talking, like I like talking to an author than reading their book, because then I feel like it's like behind the scenes and I get more out of it. And it's the same thing then when I do the audio book, it's like 1, 2, 3. Yeah. So I'm like, I always love hearing when people do that, because I'm like, oh, that's so cool, because now I get to listen to it and, compare and contrast and see if, these things, because sometimes, with reading, it's different than listening to it. A lot of times I get more out of it.
Reading also takes a lot more time, and not everyone has the time.
Yep,
so it's
totally
easy to just pop a audiobook into your ear when you're doing dishes or something.
Yeah. Well, it's like CM Quinn. She ended up having I think I lost track, like 56,000 sales with her first book. So I had her on and twice, and then she's about to release book 2. And then, I saw recently that she shared on Facebook. And I was like, dang. I was like, you can definitely tell that, it's good to go into the Audible market if you can, or if Podium, offers you something. Like, I honestly would just take it with 50-50 with them. But yeah, it definitely shows you, right, that other people are probably leaving a lot of readers, and, not that people do it for the money, but, you need to just to be able to do your next project, I mean,
yeah, absolutely.
This isn't the Renaissance, so it's a little different, but. Well, that's super cool.
We have options now. We have a lot of options.
Yeah. Well, I'm always teasing Clayton Snyder because I want another Cold West book of his. And I'm telling the audience, like, go read it. It's a mix of sci-fi, Western, and fantasy. And it's written in a great narrative style. And it's one of the best books I've read in the last 5 years.
That sounds really fun.
Yeah, it's really cool. And it's not very long. It's I think probably 250 pages if it's paperback, but
that's a decent short length for fantasy.
Yeah. Oh, so good.
Fantasy.
Yeah, I'm like,
plus the rest.
Yeah. I really want everybody to make him rich, so that I told him, I said, or so that he can, give me another one. I said, or I can just pay you to write me a second book, and we'll do really old school, not Patreon, but Patreon. So I'm always teasing him there, but yeah. Want to remind everybody
collaboration.
You know what? That's true. I never thought of that. Yeah, that's really true.
They did it in the 90s. Hello, before proper access to internet, mails, and just everything over the phone.
Yeah,
it's amazing. It's Good Omens is still one of the best books that I ever read.
Yeah.
It's so amazingly fun. And the TV show was really justified it well too. It's
that's I got to I think that's when the summer, or right when the pandemic happened, I think. So I still have through the last 3 episodes. And I totally keep forgetting I have Amazon Prime because I've just been like writing too much. But yeah, that's definitely one I'm gonna have to finish the show for.
Life happens.
Yeah, I'm like, I just need to like sit in front of my TV and then just like read for like a month, just to like get caught up with as many things as possible.
Books happen.
Yeah, that's true. That's totally true.
You put that on the t-shirt. Books happen.
Yeah. We got a lot of t-shirts we got to make on here. My friend was teasing me like we should do one of those stores where when people order it, then it makes it and then just ships to their house. Yeah. I'm like, that's a really good idea. We'd have some pretty cool ones. I definitely want to do one with my logo, and then I want to do two of them. I want to do one like fantasy authors have more fun. And then I want to do a sci-fi one. So you got like both opposing sides and two different options so that fantasy authors could get one and then sci-fi authors could get the other one. I put horror into kind of both, I guess, but
sci-fi authors say, don't listen to fantasy authors.
Sci-fi authors are like, yeah, but we get technology or something. Once I get a cool tagline, I'll put them. They'll be like, I think I'm doing one black, like all black, and then just changing my logo to the black part like white and vice versa, and then having the other one
get the contrast going.
Yeah, so they're like yin and yang, be like the Taj Mahal was supposed to be. Yeah, it's super cool. I just want to ask you, oh my gosh, keep losing it for some reason. I forget. I had a really good question for you. Oh, now I'm gonna lose it. I'm sure it'll come to me right when we're about to be done. I'll be like, oh wait. So just want to remind our audience that you can find Lillian's books in the description anywhere where you find this video. Oh, that's what I was going to ask you.
There it is. It's in reverse, but maybe you can flip it.
Yeah, you can tell I'm about to be a dad. Like got nothing left. Yeah, I love the sails on there. The lightning looks really cool too on the back. I did not notice that yet. That's really cool.
It's a lot darker than the digital version because printing just makes everything darker.
Yeah.
But it's still like everything is still there. And
I love like the front sails, like the three.
Oh, that's cool maps. Map.
Oh, that's cool. I'm a map junkie, so that's really cool. Oh, that's awesome.
I'm glad I remembered bringing.
Yeah, I'm glad you did too, because I was like, what am I forgetting? Oh man,
what have we been talking about? I don't know.
Yeah. That's how I was earlier today. My kids were like, "Are you okay?" I just like stopped. I was like, I got about 4 hours of sleep last night. Like we just had way too much going on. I was trying to help my wife, and then I was like sending out podcast stuff in between, like cleaning and trying to see if she's feeling okay and this and that. I think she had like an ear thing or something. She was saying it's weird words. She had like an ear infection, and I had tubes put in my ears. So I'm like totally know how it feels. I'm like I feel bad anytime someone tells me. My nephew had one. I was like, poor little guy. Well, I'm glad that we got that out of the way. That's what I was going to ask you.
Yes, I'm glad I took the initiative.
Yeah, I'm really glad too. I was like, there's something I'm gonna do. Yeah, I love the 3 sails in particular on like the front ship. I just think that the placement looked just really good to me, and it really draws your eye like right there. And then I felt like it really drew my eye, to your title.
Yeah, absolutely. We also have a short animated version of the cover that's on Rising Action's Instagram.
Oh, I must have missed that. Okay.
It's very short, but the ship in the background is like firing cannons at them, so that's kind of
cool. Oh, that's super cool. Yeah, you'll definitely have to send it to me. I'll put it in the description so people can see. I'm always looking for stuff like that because that to me is just like a cool little advertisement thing. I like when people do that, the animated covers. Like, yeah, that's super cool. We were talking about doing that for my urban fantasy where we got the runes behind the guy where he's kind of like turned with his sword. We talked about doing it where they glow 1 by 1 or whatever or something. Yeah, that's super cool. I'm a geek when it comes to tech stuff and art stuff like that, so that's like right up my alley.
I really like artwork, like book trailers and all that kind of stuff. It's just so cool. It's such a underrated medium today. We didn't have those things.
No,
10
totally.
Years ago.
Yeah. Like P.L. Stewart, his second book. Like that one. I
just watched that. I just listened to that podcast actually.
Yeah, so good. I always like, he's such a nice guy, just such a nice guy, so helpful for everybody. But like I was just like, I listen to as many podcasts as I can with him. He was so cool to, some people are just prolific in writing, but other people are prolific and be able to talk about it. And I feel like he does a really good job with both. And what he's able to do is like, that's what I want to be able to do. In terms of,
I want that.
Yeah, I'm like, that's really good. So if you guys haven't checked that out, make sure you check out that. And obviously we'll put Lillian's in the description. I'm really looking forward to seeing that. I'm actually surprised that I missed that. I must have just not clicked on that somewhere, but that's super cool. I'm really excited now. I love surprises. So come back at some point in the email and check that out. I'm gonna be really jealous, by the way. That's kind of what we're doing with our new logo, which will actually be now, before this video. So that's super cool. Have to check that out. I'm definitely going to be putting that down as something that I need in the future.
Awesome.
Next to editor and book cover, need animated cover for advertisement. But well, Lillian, thank you so much for coming on today. It was a real pleasure. I'm like I said, I got to chapter 1 of your book, so I'm really looking forward to getting through the rest of it. The concept sounded really cool. Anytime you can get a ship in a fantasy setting and it flies around, I'm like, I'm there. Maybe it's my Peter Pan roots or something like that, but that's definitely always up my alley. So, and Treasure Planet, you had me at Treasure Planet because that's one of my favorite movies.
That's my hook. I just snag everyone with that because Treasure Planet is the bomb.
Yeah. They definitely need to redo something with that, or do a live action or something,
or just re-release them.
I think it'd be cool. Yeah, actually, that. Oh man, you guys heard it here first. Disney, make sure you get Lillian some money for that idea. She'll take 80%. You guys can keep 20. That's totally fine. I'll negotiate on her behalf. So.
Yeah.
Don't worry, I got
you so much.
Yeah, of course. Anytime. Like I said, you got any other news or updates, or you want to just come and talk? We'll be sending out some, like in the fall, we're gonna be doing some different panels and stuff. So we'll be asking people, hey, are you interested in this round or this item, this topic? So we're hoping to do at least 2 of them in the fall, and then 2 in the winter, and then a couple next spring and then summer. So we got some world building, some different things. So some things that I've been wondering on, a couple of experiments I want to do sociologically with some different writers. So I'll be sending
so many things to do.
Yeah, I'll be sending you to that invitation too. I'm getting a newsletter together for people, and just to see, it's like a really quick thing just to see, calendar and things like that, to see whoever's interested. So hopefully we can get you on with one of those as well. But in the meantime, if there's something I can do, to help you or Tina out, just message me, feel free to, follow me on social media, tag me in anything. That way I can share it very easily. Yeah, of course. Anything we can do to help, just let me know. And want to remind the audience to check out the description so you can go and check out Lillian's book. Make sure you give her a like, a follow, and buy that book anywhere where books are sold, or on Amazon or Kindle. Please make sure we're really trying to stress this year for season 2. Please make sure you're reviewing your books. Again, particularly, it's really anybody nowadays, but especially indie, it's the easiest way to help somebody that an author that you like. It's the easiest way to get a book 2 or a book 3. So just want to stress that. And again, Lillian, thank you so much for coming. I'll be emailing you shortly for the calendar and things like that. And if you have any questions at all, just let me know. And hopefully, we can answer them as quick as possible for you.
Yeah, no, thank you so much for having me. I had a blast.
Excellent. Yeah. Thank you so much. And like I said, if there's anything else I can do, let me know. But, other than that, hope you have a great rest of the day.
Yeah, you too.
Thank you so much. I'll see you later.
Yeah.
Bye.